What's up, everybody? Dariel here from the Florida Hockey Bros. My brother David decided to commission today. Some baby stuff came up, but I wanted to do a quick preview of the Leaves and Panthers series. I've been listening to all the previews out there, both in terms of the Toronto market, the Florida market, and just in general the neutral hockey markets. And I wanted to chime in and give a bit of a. I'm hoping a bit of a more informed and balanced perspective. Though of course I'm a Panthers fan, there's always going to be bias. But yeah, I wanted to break down a few areas that might be ignored or not necessarily brought into account when talking about the series and what to expect, and also just share some of the experience being a Panthers fan since 1998. I've been a fan for 27 years of the Panthers, and seeing them sort of become this team now recently that actually can contend and more of a serious franchise. But anyway, I've watched most of the Leafs games, I would say the last 3 to 4 years, definitely most of them this year. I follow a lot of the pundits, a lot of the podcasts, whether it's Bunkus or Kipper and Bourne or Dangle with the fan perspective, TSN Overdrive, all the conversations around the team. We're kind of jealous. I think we've said before about the coverage because we wish we had that in Florida. We don't. But anyway, we're fans of the game. We're fine. We definitely are not fans of the Leafs. They're the rival, but anyway, it's fun to have the drama, and I'm glad that we get to face the Leafs because I wanted that matchup last year, and the Bruins, sort of eliminated them in 7. But it's a matchup that's always fun because it's such a contrast in style, and I think now the teams are a little closer defensively in style, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But anyway, I'm going to break this down for you all, see what you think. The other thing I wanted to sort of talk about real quick, and hopefully any Leafs fans who might come across this don't mind this for a second. I'm going to rant just for 1 second about the Lightning. Just want to say to the Lightning fans who might see this, we've been getting a lot of flack on social media from Lightning fans that the Panthers fans are classless, that the organization and team is classless, this and that. Listen, be mad at Cooper, who has stopped coaching since you won the last cup and has allowed the team to become a rush team the last 3 seasons. You don't hit. We're like bottom of the league in hits this year. You don't forecheck. You don't play physical defense. Your defense is not very good in front of Vasi when it really matters. Be mad at them. Be mad at him. Be mad at the front office for like trading away a bunch of picks. And, for some guys that didn't work out. And even some of the guys that have worked out, like Gensel and Hagel, are not enough to get you through. They don't defend enough. They don't do enough. So be mad at your team for like letting things kind of get away. You're about a year or 2 away from becoming the Bruins, the Rangers, the Penguins having to rebuild. And it's okay. You got your cups, you got your runs. Good for you. You owned us for a while. Now it's our time. Even Cooper said that. Show some respect finally, saying that the Panthers were exceptional and all that. Like, be mad at your team. Stop calling us classless. Stop coming after us. Like, you just got here like pot meat kettle. Like, you guys got here too. Just because you won a cup a little bit before we did. We went to the finals before I think you even had a team. So, like if it's one thing for the Canadians fans or Leafs fans or Oilers fans, even like, Rangers fans or Red Wings fans to come after us because we just got here, we're new, we don't know what we're talking about. It's another thing for you. Like, you're from Florida, you live here too. Like, stop it. It's ridiculous to be coming after us like we don't know any hockey or more. Just because you won the cups. It's, again, we own you. The Leafs own you. They eliminated you. They own you in the regular season. They are more physical than you. They're probably tougher opponent for us than you are at this point. So it is what it is. Just go after your team, ask them to figure it out, rebuild the team or whatever. They're soft. The other thing I'll say is about Hagel complaining about the Ekblad hit, about coming for his head, and something's coming for you. Like, Hagel just seems like a very hapless, miserable dude. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him. Somebody give him help, buy him flowers. I don't know what he needs. He's always sour, plays dirty. Same with Kucherov. It's not like you guys have been clean or classy or whatever. When you won your cups, you were doing dirty stuff and getting away with it too. So that's one. And the other thing is, you went after Barkov, one of the classiest, cleanest players in the league. He's the heart and soul of the team. Blindside hit super high, threw him against the boards. He could have hit his head, he could have hit his neck. You didn't care. You did it on purpose. You're saying you were willing to fight. All of a sudden, you're a tough fighter. You wanted to fight Verhaeghe. Like, when's the last time Verhaeghe had to fight? Fight Bennett, fight Greer. If you're such a fighter, like, fight one of those guys. See if they don't give you another concussion. Of course, you won't fight them. But instead of that, you don't get to decide what turns. Ekblad has played with Barker for over a decade together. That forum was only a matter of time. That happened. You asked for it. So if you go after another captain like that, the message the Panthers are going to send you is, we'll end your season. And that's what it is. So is it clean? Is it this? You can say whatever you want. You started it. We didn't go after Kucherov like that. We didn't do that. You didn't even go after Kachuk or Bennett or Marchand. You went after Barkov. So once you do that, it's fair game. So now to come crying or whatever, like what's coming for you, we'll see you next season. See what you're going to do. See who you're going to fight. See you're going to fight for Hagee again. So anyway, Hagel, Tampa fans, get out of here. The time's over. Leaves are better. We're better. The plan is getting stronger. We're a fake team all season, playing the rush, playing open, scoring a bunch of goals. And when it matters, you can't even compete. Nowhere close. Like 138 hits you put against us. Like that's like bottom of the team, bottom of the league in the playoffs. Like, get out of here with that. So stop calling us classless. Go after your team. It's going to be rinse and repeat for the next few years against also the Leafs. So, maybe get used to it. All right, rant over. When it comes to the Leafs series, I wanted to sort of mention a couple of things. I think that people forget this stuff. There's a lot of talk about the Leafs defense this season, and I do agree that bringing in experienced, bigger defensemen helps. And Berube's system of blocking shots, collapsing, very similar to what the Bruins have done to the Panthers the last couple of years, and it's why the Bruins series have been very tough for the Panthers, even though I think the Panthers have been a better team. But when you look back to the Leafs against the Panthers 2 years ago, those games were like 3-2, 3-2 in overtime, 2-1, 3-2 in overtime. They were very close. I don't think the goaltending was all the difference. I don't think they weren't high scoring series. The same with the Bruins and Leafs last year. The last like 3 games, 3-1, 2-1 in OT, 2-1, 2-1 in OT. Like, I don't think it's been the goaltending or the defense has been an issue because the Leafs have been able to play tough defense. I also say when they played the Panthers 2 years ago, not only were they the deeper team, meaning the Leafs with Chari and O'Reilly and Luke Shen and all these guys, but they were hitting a lot. I mean, the Leafs were putting on a lot of hits. They were a physical team back then. They were good defensively. So, this I think is a bit overblown about the narrative of the goaltending and the defense, though, again, it is better. I'm not trying to say it isn't. But in terms of the actual performance in the playoffs, I don't think that the disparity is that big as it's being made to be. All to say that that isn't the only thing you have to count on if you want to be the Panthers or any like legit team in the playoffs. Even I would argue the Hurricanes, who a lot of people tend to underestimate. You have to be able to do more than that. And I think the issue for the Leafs is that when you look at the point getters for the series, against the Sens, who I think were a tough team, but just kind of a rookie team, in terms of playoffs, and really you could see that they weren't ready and they were giving the Leafs too much space at times and making mistakes and turning it over and stuff like that. Nylander had 9 points, Mitch Marner 8, Matthews 7, Tavares 5, the core 4, right? Like leading scorers. And then after that was nice, Morgan Riley and OEL and stuff like that. 2 points. So I think you still see that you need the core 4 to score a lot to get through a series. The other thing to notice is that even though they scored a bunch of points, again, 9, 8, 7, 5. I mean, you compare that to the Panthers, like Reinhart 6, Sam Bennett 5, Kachuk 5, and Lundell 5. So the core 4 scored more than the top Panthers players in their series. Even though that was the case, Nylander was -2, Tavares was -2, Marner and Matthews were even. And, whereas the Panthers' top players were all on the plus side. And the third line for the Panthers was Strine and Marchand and Lundell, like +6, +5. So at 5-on-5, I would say that the scoring and the play still favors the Panthers, and that's something to keep in mind. And I don't think that's any news to anybody, but to say that the true test is for the core 4 for the Leafs to be able to perform at 5-on-5 and not just score, but find a way to shut the Panthers down at 5-on-5. Which again, it's not so much like the 2-1, 3-2 games, because that's been the case in the last few series. It's like, can you sustain that game over game over game, or moment over moment? The game could be 4-4. Can you sustain it so that you don't allow the 5th goal? Do you have the endurance to go deep in the series? And I would say that that's where a lot of the difference can be made, and where the Panthers know how to manage a series. The Panthers go into every series thinking it's going to go 7. I mean, that's one misconception on Maurice and the team. Like, they know they're good, but they're not expecting to sweep anybody. They go in knowing that we're a forechecking team. Our bread and butter is to defend, to attack on the forecheck, to try to get some key goals, minimize the penalties, and they have a very strong PK in case they do take a penalty, and then try to grind the series out. And that's sort of the approach. So they have a long-term approach. If a game gets out of hand, the Panthers don't panic. They're going to hit you. They're going to make you pay. They're going to make you work for the next game. They're thinking about, okay, what's coming. They're not going to lay down the way that I think some other teams have a tendency to do. So that's what you have to contend with. And to me, the test will be, can the Leafs show that they're matured enough to be able to be in the battle, not for a game. Like, the Leafs have come out against the Sens hot. They put in a lot of hits in the first period and then kind of faded when it came to the physicality, if you actually break it down and look at the numbers. And they focus more on shutting it down. I would say the Leafs allowed, like, gave up 3 leads in that series. So this idea that they can hold a lead, it's a lot harder to do in the playoffs. But anyway, can they sustain and can show the maturity to actually overcome the adversity that's going to come with the physicality, with the play, with the forecheck? That's one test. If you can push the Panthers to 7 games, or if you can beat them in this series, I think you can definitely take it to the bank that the team has figured something out mentally, and then they are ready to take that next step. I think that's possible because of the talent level. I think the bottom 6 for the Leafs is solid. I think the defense is definitely solid. I will name that the bottom 6 for the Leafs 2 years ago when you faced the Panthers was actually not that bad when you look at it. There was a lot of physicality. Their fourth line at the time was one of the better lines against us. And the other thing to remember about the Panthers that beat you in 5 a couple years ago is that, one, they didn't have the experience they have now in the playoffs. 2, Duclair was on the top line. And then Cousins was on the second line. Our fourth line was made up of AHLers. We had Mark Stoll and Josh Mahura, the whole series on defense. A different beast now, much like the Leafs are improved. I think the Panthers are much improved now. So that's going to be really tough. And the other thing is that there's this mythology that the Panthers are dirty and like that's all they do, and they just come after you and all the dirty stuff. I think that's a Leafs fan perspective because, to be honest with you all, like, you just haven't been used to that physicality and that sort of approach to the game for a while until you got Simone Benoit and Scott Lawn now more recently, and some guys who are willing to not just fight but to actually hit, to fight through the hits. I would say is a little bit of the difference. But this idea that the Panthers hit, or like most teams do this. Like when we face the Oilers, we face a lot of that. Draisaitl like knocked Barco out of a game with a chip shot. The Bruins have done a lot of dirty stuff against us, same as we were doing to them. Like this just kind of comes with the territory in the playoffs. And if you're not willing to do that, like we saw against the Hurricanes, that series, Slavin got knocked out by Bennett with a clean hit. That can happen. And so if you're not used to it, it can look that way. But the Panthers don't rely just on that. The Panthers put on not that many hits in the first round. I think they put actually 2 fewer hits in the Leafs, 5-5. And I know it's 1 fewer game, but it's not a huge difference. This idea that the Panthers are just out there to try to headhunt or whatever, that's actually not what the team has been since that last series that you saw against the Panthers. Now they hit, they forecheck. That's how they frustrate you. The thing that people don't understand about the Panthers is it's not so much like a Chuck or Bennett are going to lay you out. They will if you allow them. If you have your head down and they can get a shot at you, they're going to finish the check. They don't care who it is on the other side. They're even willing to take a penalty here or there because they trust the PK, which is just a way to impose their sort of presence in the game. And some of the defensemen like Mikola and Kulikov can also, if they want, sort of lay a hit, but they're not out there trying to necessarily do that all the time. What they do that frustrates people is that the forecheck is relentless. So even Lundell, Lustrainen, Verhaeghe has games where he has 6-7 hits, and you notice them. They're not like, sorry to say, the Marner hits, who I see has 5 or 6 hits, and I'm like, when did he hit anybody? I didn't even notice it. They're going to hit your defensemen over and over again, and your forwards over and over again on the boards. And when that happens, they start to get frustrated. Nobody likes that. They're used to, okay, I get hit once, I get hit twice, okay, but the next shift, they're going to skate by. The Panthers don't play that. Reinhardt finishes checks, Barco finishes check, and it's constant. And that is the big difference. That leads to turnovers. That leads to fatigue. That leads to mental fatigue of wanting to rush the play. And I have to say the one area defensively where the Leafs are not as good this year is when it comes to that zone defense, when it comes to that forecheck style. So that's one thing to watch. I think if the Leafs can capitalize on their power plays, and if the Leafs can really shut it down and really keep the Panthers to 2 goals a game, they absolutely could win the series in 6 or 7. I also think that the Panthers are more experienced, more mature, that they're going to be physical, but they're not going to be losing their minds out there. And I don't think that's going to be their approach. I don't think that the Leafs are going to dominate possession the way they did 2 years ago with the puck, or go on these huge rallies in the first period. I mean, they're going to have their moments. But the Panthers back then, again, had a lot of AHLers and were a slower team. And Nick Cousins on the second line, Duclair on the first line. That's what you were facing. So that's not what you have right now. So I am going to be very curious to see what happens. But if all things go according to what we've seen and to how the teams are built and the way that the matchup is supposed to play out, the Leafs are going to have a hard time, much more harder time than they did against the Sens. I expect the Leafs to elevate their play. I expect them to put up a fight and be tough or tougher than they've been in the past. They have some of the players now to do it. I think Stolarz is a really good goalie, and if he struggles, Wall, I think, can come in and steal you a game. I see the Leafs winning a couple of games. I think they could push it to 7. The question about a series is, can you do it for 7 games? That is always the question. I don't think, and even as a Panthers fan, I don't care if we beat the Lightning in 5 or 7. I don't care if we beat the Leafs, in 4 or 7, as long as we get to that next stage. And every series is different. Every opponent in a matchup is different. I mean, the Panthers kind of got outplayed by the Hurricanes in 3 out of the 4 games, and we swept them, right? So that can happen. The Panthers eventually are going to lose. Like, they're not going to win every series. They might not win the Cup this year. It could be the Leafs, but for now, the way that the team is built, and given how Cito was able to manage things, I think they have a very deep team. I think they have a deep team of 5-5. The third line with Marchand, Lustrani, and Lundell is going to be an issue. They defend really well. They can match up on the road, and that still leaves the top 2 lines for the Panthers to do some damage. So it will be a question of, the power play. It will be a question of who can cancel each other out. But yeah, just to name that, I think that you have to. I think at the end of the day, if the core 4 for the Leafs aren't willing to defend when it really counts, and then capitalize at 5-on-5 too when they can, if they only rely on getting the power play chances, or if they're hoping to be able to score like some key goals here or there, or getting some of the gimmies that the Sens kind of gave them, that might not be there for you as much. And the Panthers need to go in knowing that this is a sort of a tougher defensive style team than they faced last time against the Leafs. But we faced that with the Bruins before. We faced that with Carolina before. So the Panthers don't get frustrated. Even if they're losing 2-1, 3-1, they'll play their game. They'll keep hitting. They won't, that relentlessness, inconsistency is what leads to what happens against the Lightning when they were down, when they allowed those 2 goals in 11 seconds, and eventually they were able to score. The Panthers didn't open the game up. They just stuck with the game plan, and eventually they trusted that they would come, and the other team gets tired. And so I am fascinated by what happens in this series. We'll see. Again, I think up there the narrative is often about, Marner and Matthews, and can they come through or whatever. At the end of the day, that is kind of the question. I mean, honestly, the question is, can they come through? Can they deliver the right hits at the right time? Can they defend and not turn it over at the right times? Can they score key goals and then not give it up? The Leafs took leads against the Panthers last time in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and they lost those leads and weren't able to tie it. So that's really going to be the question when you're playing a more mature, patient team like the Panthers, a more physical team, not necessarily in terms of hits, because the other thing I'll name is, like, the Sens put on, I think, the second most hits in the first round, like 258 or 59 on the Leafs, while the Panthers only received 138. So physically speaking, the Leafs might be a bit more banged up than the Panthers. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out, man. I just think that it gets ignored oftentimes that, this isn't like so different from before. It is a little bit different. The teams are a little bit different, but it's a matter of how the actual series plays out, how the matchup plays out now, who can lean in their strengths, who can minimize some of the mistakes and some of the weaknesses that they have. And I just, I don't know that the Leafs are ready. I mean, the Sens kind of show a little bit of cracks on the Leafs. And so, can they overcome them against the Panthers? And yeah, it would be a good test. If they lose to the Panthers in 6 or fewer, I think it might be a sign that the core 4 isn't going to make it. Or at least doesn't have what it takes. If they're able to push it to 7 or maybe win, maybe they figure something out. They're sort of getting closer, and this is kind of their window, I would argue, in the next 2 to 3 years, because I think that defense is going to get old quick. But yeah, can't wait for the series. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, give us a like or a hate or whatever it is, if you're a Leafs fan or a Lightning fan. But yeah, let us know what you think about the series and what the key to the series might be. For me, I don't think there's just one thing. I think, again, I've learned that every series is different. So it's going to really depend on what the teams focus on, and what actually happens on the ice, and what they're able to do, in terms of able to exploit against the other team. And one thing I was going to mention is, if the Leafs lose their mind, like if they're expecting the Panthers to just be dirty and physical, and they over prepare for that, that could be a recipe for disaster. They could end up retaliating, taking penalties, kind of overhyping themselves. I've seen the Panthers do that in their first run. There were games where the Panthers were like overly physical, like Kachuk would go the extra thing and get a penalty. Like, sometimes you can get away with that if your peak is good. But the Leafs should, like, it's maturity. It's like, make your physicality count. The example I give is, like, Verhaeghe got laid out by Domi this season when we went to Toronto the first time. Just absolutely laid out in the first period. I think the Leafs were up 1-0. And then the Panthers ended up winning that game and shutting the Leafs down the rest of the game, right? Verhaeghe didn't hit anybody. Nobody went after Domi. And you kind of just kept playing for the most part. I think Domi ended up fighting Schmidt and beat the hell out of Schmidt. It didn't make a difference. Like the Panthers won and controlled the game. So to me, that's the maturity. Like getting hit, it's normal. Like don't be afraid to get hit. Like you are gonna get laid out. The Panthers have gotten laid out by the Bruins a bunch of times. It's not like the Panthers were the only ones hitting. Some of those games, the Bruins put on a lot more hits than we did, and they were pretty brutal. But can you recover? Can you come back and still make the play in spite of that, and not flinch the next time somebody's skating by? So to me, that's going to be the difference. It isn't just about like just hit a bunch of guys. Luke Shen, Noel Achari hit a bunch of Panthers in that series, and they still lost in 5. So it is really about the consistency and making it count. So yeah, let's see how the series goes. We'll make another video or maybe halfway into the series next weekend and see where we're at. But for now, yeah, leave us a comment if you don't mind. We'll try to do a little bit more content for you guys. Peace.